go ahead and throw your questions in the chat box for Julie and Holly. And then Holly, Julie, I'll turn it over to you and let us know about Avail.
Okay.
And they're fancy enough. They've got somebody else running their.
She's just much better at it than
We're
us.
strategically placed.
Thank you.
Can everybody see our screen?
Yep, we've got you.
Great. So I'll start us off. I'm Holly Chakmacki, and I'm the Managing Director of Inditech Solutions. And this is Julie, our Business Development Manager here as well. I was just going to start off trying to be a little bit kind of a quick overview of Inditech and Avail. But first, before that, we are a whole subsidiary of a large nonprofit here in Pennsylvania, Delaware, and Connecticut called KenCrest Services. So we serve about 16,000 people here through the lifespan, so birth through adulthood in all types of capacities. So we work with young children, school-age children, supported employment, community living, life sharing. We basically do it all in those 3 states. So how we became involved with technology was through our parent company. And about 2 years ago, we were approached by an organization called Avail, go figure, and they're based out of Ireland, and they were brought to us by someone in our network and said, you guys should really check out this technology and what's going on there. So the Avail folks came to KenCrest and piloted their technology here, and we decided, you know, we really are interested in this. We want to see what's happening. We'd like to try this with a group here. So what we decided to do was a 3-month pilot of the Avail solution across our agency. So we tried to hit almost every type of individual that we serve, except for our young children in that first pilot. So we had 50 individuals participate over 3 months, and within about 2 or 3 weeks, our data started rolling in, and we were seeing results almost immediately. So now I'll kind of get into what we were seeing and you know, what Avail actually does. So what you want to think about Avail is think virtual assistant or behavior specialist on a smart device. So anything that a staff member or a family member or caregiver might do to walk someone through, you know, an individual task or routine or coping strategy, you can digitalize it within minutes on the Avail solution. So it's an application on a smart device. And you can go from the individual's prompting level, so anything from a video model all the way down to just written word, whatever that person might need, and it'll walk them through. So if we're thinking something like, give us an example.
What you're seeing here is making tea. So this would be a step. So you're seeing that progress bar at the top. That's the indicator to the user where they are in the task, and the next step would you know, the arrow at the bottom would proceed then into the next step.
So what it allows for the individual to do is take some autonomy and over their own prompting through everything that they're doing during their daily routine. And where we also see this really work for our folks is in an employment or transition setting. So think about job tasks, anything that a job coach, even a mentor or supervisor will be walking you through, you now have that discreetly on your smart device. So it's like I said, a behavior specialist on the smart device. So it's based on ABA and best practices. So it is task analysis. So you're going from the prompt hierarchy all the way down, you know, through each step. So each step can be individualized. So you may have one step that's a video model. Your next step you might only need just a picture for that. There's also a timer that can walk people through if they need a specific amount of time to complete one step of the task.
And that's really what this screen is showing here. So the facilitator, which is what we refer to the person providing the support or developing the tasks, would use this screen as a way to develop you know, the steps needed to walk someone through the activity. So those of you that are familiar with paper-based supports, this is the digital version of that. So it really creates a lot of efficiency and a personalization.
And rather than, you know, spending hours and hours creating a picture schedule and Velcro and all of those things that we do. It's time at the laminator, finding all of those resources and then putting them together. You now have it easily and discreetly on the smart device, and you can create task analysis within minutes. So rather than having to do it outside of being with the individual, you can create something on the fly. So if someone was going to a baseball game for the first time and you realized they were going to have to learn how to wait in line or how to pay for something in a place where they've never been, the caregiver could create that task for them within minutes at that place on the fly. So that's really something that we were really excited about, because that's something we've never really had before. And they can also create those tasks remotely as well and then push them to the individual's device if needed. So there's also built in, so we talked about the front end. So the front end of the system, you have all of that task analysis. You're able to create all of those routines and social stories and strategies. But the back end is really what got us excited. So while the individual is using this, the software is capturing, analyzing, and graphing all of that data for us based on an assessment that's built into the system. So we're able to see progress pretty quickly on the back end. And that allows us not only to capture that data, because we all are in such need of data and to understand so that we can better support our folks, but it's also allows us to not over support and really be mindful of how we're supporting individuals. Because sometimes, as good as we are, I mean, Julie and I are both clinicians by trade, no matter how much you think you're doing, we forget sometimes, and we tend to over support. And we see a lot of that at our agency. So that was something that we were really interested in understanding as well, because we tend to just come into this field because we're caregivers and we want to do right, but sometimes we forget about really pushing independence and what our goals actually are. So this actually walks a facilitator or a staff member or caregiver through appropriate prompt reduction. So if someone's showing us that they are now 60% independent at a video model, it's going to say, before you can actually close out of the assessment, it'll say, are you sure you don't want to reduce the prompts here? And it'll walk you through. So within minutes on the back end now, you have a completely different task analysis or a reduction in prompts.
I think that's a really important point, because at the heart of Avail is a learning platform.
Yeah.
So it's not just a support tool.
Yeah.
So I have a question. Sorry. So the person that is changing those prompt levels dynamically, they can do that on the fly, right? So I'm there and somebody's, as you said, 60% independent and whatever. I can jump in and change that level. Who has the ability to do that? Is there a permission structure for users back behind the scenes so that frontline supervisors can change it, but DSPs can't? Or am I thinking through that right?
Yeah, so there is a hierarchy of who can do what. So how Avail works is we have what we call learners, which would be the individuals who are using the software themselves for their daily routines. And then we have what we call facilitators, which would be maybe a direct support professional, a program specialist, and they would have access to change particular tasks that they have with that person. So a family member, whoever is a facilitator, could change, but then as an organization, there's also a management account that has access to your entire organization. So for us at ChemCrest, we will by the end of July have about 150 individuals just in our organization on the system. So we needed someone to have access as a manager to all of that data. And you can not only pull it, we didn't get to it yet, but there is ways to pull that data at the facilitator level, at the manager's level, and then at the organizational level as well. So anyone who is the facilitator for that learner could change it. And starting in, I think, August, you'll be able to have 3 facilitators per learner. So you could have a therapist, maybe a program director, and your DSP could all have access, but different levels of access. So that'll be coming to the system in August.
Cool.
Choice, yeah. Mm-hmm. So we talked a little bit about this. This kind of walks you through. This is what someone would see as they're reducing prompts. So this was created. So the founder of Avail was actually a behavior specialist herself, and in Ireland, it's a little bit different of a support structure there for people with disabilities. And so she was working particularly with individuals, young children with autism, and would go with her big bag of tricks, her social stories, her pecs, all of those things, and then would leave with them. And so she thought, there's got to be a way to digitalize this. And Julie and I always are kicking ourselves, like, why did we think of this first? We should have came up with this. So this was made to be so user-friendly that a parent or anyone without any experience in task analysis or positive approaches to behavior could utilize. So when you're thinking about, who would be a good facilitator for a learner, it really was made for, it's basic, so anyone can really do it. And I think that's another really important point, that it's very user-friendly and it's pretty intuitive. And it's one of the most intuitive kind of platforms that we've come across as providers as well.
And if you can look a little deeper at this slide, I know the text is pretty small. As Holly described, you're not only on this getting suggestions around prompt reduction, but right within the app, you can change the prompting levels to maybe, be more complex, less complex, based on the user's progress. So it's just, again, if we were relying on a paper-based support and you needed to omit a step, oftentimes you would have to go back and change quite a bit. So what this allows you to do, and Holly, said on the fly, and really you can do this on the fly. You can change a step, add a step, modify it in any way, and you can also do it based on whatever kind of feedback the system's giving you, what your assessment's telling you. There's a couple different ways to let you know how that user is progressing.
So yeah,
I have a quick question. I'm sorry to keep interrupting you guys. No, I'll do that. Who are you working with? Who is purchasing Avail? Is it a provider agency? I know that you both work for Chemcrest, which is a provider agency that has started to use Avail and now, provide Avail to other agencies around the United States. But are you selling to providers? Are you selling to case managers, service coordinators, those roles, families, or all of the above maybe? Or
so it's a mix for sure. Right now, a lot of what we're doing, and I think many people probably on the webinar now probably know that applications like Avail weren't necessarily an approved type of assistive technology in many states. Almost, Pennsylvania, this just became available in our waivers in January. So we're really working with a variety of folks, but particularly at the organizational level, that's, who we're looking for, that would be interested in purchasing this. And we found that we've been doing really small pilots. We're a new startup, and so we're really looking to gain data to make sure that the system is working effectively. So what we've been doing a lot of is clinical proof of concept and working with other organizations nationally, and then also state legislators to really make sure that applications like Avail and other, either open source or low cost applications are also available for individuals with disabilities. Because what we're finding, and I'm sure everybody else knows, but there's so many different avenues of how do we get access to it, but such a divide in who has access, or what people actually think is accessible in assistive technology. So we're really working with, I would say, from state level to the county, all the way down to, individuals and family members. But a lot of what we're doing is focusing directly with organizations.
With providers, and those providers, anyone from people like Chemcrest who are providing, lifespan kinds of services, to even, employment support services is another group that we've been working quite a bit with. So. And as Holly said, as we're having people implement the system, we are also able to work with them around what are your particular needs. So we're working really closely with organizations to make sure that it's an effective solution for them, and we're able to do so because it's a really flexible system, and it really meets the user where they are. So you can have an entire group implementation with really specific usage.
And one of the things I think forgot to mention was that there's a library of tasks
Yes.
that are pre-created. So there's hundreds of tasks already created and routines on the system that you can modify. So if someone really is feeling like, I don't know what we would create or how we would create it or what even an appropriate size of a task analysis would look like, they have a model and a framework to work from. The other thing that we do a lot with organizations is we help them develop their own library. So thinking about one of the pilots that we have going right now is with Project Search here in Pennsylvania. So we have a group of students working at a firm, and so they have a specific library of tasks that are around their job and employment duties. So that's a really another really nice feature, that you can have these really what's the word, individualized at the individual level, but then also if there's a specific program in your organization that has similar tasks, that people can use that as well. Good.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think what else we missed.
Yeah.
We have a full 30 minutes and we weren't prepared for that.
Don't you have to answer?
That's okay, because I actually have some questions. And for those of you that are on right now, again, you can't talk, you're on mute. So go ahead and type your questions in the chat box and I'll get them to Holly and Julie. But so you were talking about working with provider agencies. It seems like it would be a really great way to kind of help them streamline and document activities and outcomes and collect data and all that kind of stuff, right? Is that an accurate statement?
Yeah, most definitely. As Holly explained, there's the app side, but then there's the web portal part of the solution. And you're able really within minutes or less, pull reports that show data around user engagement. So they include things like, okay, when that assessment is complete that we showed you on the screen, what is it looking like in terms of the level of independence? So really what the person, that the facilitator is doing is answering, are they independent at that step or not? It's the system's calculating a percentage of independence, and that's some user data that you can get, along with the data that goes with the kinds of modifications that may or may not have happened to the task. There's a prompt reduction data that you also can get off of that portal. There's duration and data so that you know when and how long a user has been engaged. That data also gets pushed via email to the facilitator. So for example, if let's say we had somebody in an employment setting that a facilitator was supporting, and they had a particular task to do at a particular time, the system has the capability to send the user the alert, and then the facilitator, when that task is complete, when that user moves through the task and completes it, gets to the last step, the facilitator gets an email indicating that. So it's a great way then to be able to support individuals remotely while allowing them to self-direct. So that's one piece of kind of streamlining data collection, making it more efficient. And then also on the facilitator side, you're collecting similar data around how much they're engaged, how many tasks they have created, of course, who's assigned to them,
how many assessments
they've done. So you're looking at, you can get data on both of those sides, and when you and then you can get sort of a large picture of what's happening in an organization or around a group, as Holly mentioned, with those manager level credentials. So you are able to see the entire picture of what's going on with Avail engagement within a particular organization.
So if someone, for example, had an ISP meeting, coming up, then their facilitator or their staff might go in and you can customize the report. So maybe they need to see everything, but maybe mom and dad are coming next week and they only really want to see how Johnny's doing, with it could be anything, his morning routine. So you can customize the report. So you could have a 50-page report with minutes, or you could just customize it really narrow to what you're looking for. So if it's a behavior specialist and they really want to just see that prompt reduction, the duration times, is it taking them less time? What's the average of that duration time? Then you can get really minute, or you can have a really big, broad picture. And then on top of that, what Julie was saying, which is really great as an organization, and this is just across the board in adult services, we're always looking at better ways to to utilize data and to capture it in a streamlined way. So now everybody is using kind of a similar tool to capture improvement and progression. So we're able to see what that looks like at the agency level, and then we can really see, okay, people with what we're taking a look at, a deep dive in now with the folks that are utilizing it is, what does that look like? And if people are more independent utilizing technology, are we seeing that we have things like staff retention rates are going up? Do we see things like, a dip in, we have a DSP crisis, excuse me, I have allergies. But are we seeing, less open spots for our staff? Are we seeing that staff are happier? So it's not only for the individual, but it's also to see how we're doing as an organization as well, and how giving people tools like this on both ends makes life better, and that's really important.
I can completely see how the benefit of having the data available in a team setting, so that you kind of help guide the team's discussions and what they need to be focused on, but also from a provider agency. I mean, just having outcome data at the tips of their fingers like that to share with a funder or a regulator or even an MCO. Are you guys talking to MCOs about this? Because the data would be.
Yeah, and that's something. So in Pennsylvania right now, it's still fee for service, but we know at some point it's not when we're going to go to a managed care model. It's not if, it's when. So we're trying to think ahead of the curve of how can we make sure that we have quality data that really can speak to meaningful lives and meaningful outcomes. One story that comes to my mind is an individual who, again, it goes back to that over kind of supporting and over serving. So we had a young man who works in a gym, and he does some of their cleaning there and some other tasks around the gym. And he had a job coach. Now, he could really complete most of his daily, his activities on his own without Avail. It got to the point where he was working himself out of it. But we were still supplying a job coach a few hours a week. And when we finally looked at it, we said, but he's completely independent at everything that he's doing. He doesn't even need the software anymore. And we're like, well, there was this one time, this what if he went into the women's bathroom one time. So one time this guy goes to the women's, and we're like, well, create a task. So when it's time for him to clean the bathrooms, that he checks the sign. A 2-second task on the smartphone was saving us 3 or 4 hours of a job coach. And this guy didn't need the job coach. So it's just kind of thinking about that mindset shift and how we can utilize technology in an effective way that's not only, meaningful for the folks that we serve, but is also really valuable for our organization, because now that job coach can go support other individuals.
And that job coach did a fantastic job with Avail. And I've also seen this gentleman at work and his profile. And what I loved about what was going on in his tasks was, again, as Holly said, there's a library, there's also an ability to, just take pictures and videos within the app, of course, but then you also can pull things from your phone. And what this particular job coach did was to really highlight to this user what he needed to do around particular machines. For example, don't wipe here. She was able to take the picture of the machine, use the editing features that we all have on our phone to really circle and highlight and mark. So I thought that was really a innovative way to be using the pictures and the prompts that were available.
So one more question. Anybody else out there has questions, feel free to throw them in the chat box. Otherwise, I'll just keep asking. So you had, Holly, you had said something about device. So obviously the person served has to have a device on them. Does it require, cellular data connection? Does it have to be a phone with, connected to a cellular network, or can it be a device that's kind of run that the tasks and everything are downloaded when it's connected to Wi-Fi and it can work offline? So do they have to have a cell phone connected to the cellular network?
Yeah, it does not have to have a cell phone connection to work. So the only time you would need an internet connection or a Wi-Fi connection is when a facilitator or a staff member is creating a task. Other than that, once the tasks are cached, they're there on the learner's device and ready to go, so they can be out in the community. So we have a lot of people that are using it for travel training, or we have quite a few people that do a lot of activities within their communities so that they can be out in a park, you can be wherever you are, and still be able to access. It's just the only time you really need that connection to internet or to Wi-Fi is just when you're creating those initial tasks. But once they're created and they're cached, they're there.
Okay, and we actually have a couple of questions coming in from the audience. The first one is available on Android and Apple.
It is.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. And then obviously the big question, and we get this one on almost every tech huddle, is what does it cost? And I'm assuming it's available in the App Store and in Google Play.
It's available in the App Store and Google Play. So it's actually a licensed subscription. So it's a yearly fee, but we've actually just, we're looking to discount the price. Mm-hmm. So right now, for anybody that's interested in purchasing in the next few months, we're looking at a price of $350. Typically, initially it was $750 per year, but we have just reduced it more than half, because one of the things that we're really interested in is capturing this clinical kind of proof of concept and really getting users on the system. We also do some free demos and trials, so if people are interested in just getting their hands on it or seeing how it might particularly work, we'd be happy to do that as well. We certainly don't want price to be a hindrance. And like we said, one of the other things that we're doing a lot is working directly with the states or the MCOs to make sure that we know how to get this funded for you. So we're working with the organizations that we are working with. We also offer that service as well on our end, is being a support and making sure that we can help you get it funded for whoever this would benefit.
So in those states that are funding this through their waiver programs, is it typically funded as assistive technology, or what service definition should people go look at first in their waiver? Or I guess they could just go to you, right? And you may have that list of states.
Yeah, we can certainly support them in that. Typically it is under assistive technology. Some states are changing the language around it, and some are creating their own. Like in Tennessee, they're really pushing for enabling technology, which again kind of has that umbrella of all different types of things. So not just an assistive device, but also smart home, sensors and smart home technology, and then things that are on the App Store as well.
Yeah, so she said enabling technology. So for those of you that are on that may not have heard that term, that's a term that has been kind of coined down in Tennessee that is being floated around the country right now. And we just did a blog article on that. So we kind of look at it, at least I do, look at it as enabling technology is kind of like this umbrella term that describes all form of technology to support people with disabilities, including the traditional term assistive technology, which is devices to improve functionality for the person, something that the person uses, but then also remote supports and these other new types of tech that are kind of available these days. So just go to Disability Cocoon and look at the blog, and there's an article there where I kind of outline that. So sorry, selfless plug there.
That's an important point, and I think that a nice description and some conversation around that term is probably really helpful. Yeah, we'll have to take a look at that.
Great. Well, any other questions from the attendees? Go ahead and throw them in the box there. But we're showing right at 12:30, and I usually like to be kind of cognizant of everybody's time. Julie, Holly, is there anything else you wanted to add before we?
I don't think so.
No, our email is on the screen now, so feel free to reach out with any questions, and we can certainly, if you're interested, we can send you some videos of Avail in action, case studies, that sort of thing.
Absolutely.
We have all of those available. We just didn't want to overwhelm you with too many slides.
And as Holly said, we're also happy to talk about, a trial run, a demo account as well. So that kind of gives people a nice idea of what it would look like with the people that they serve.
Alice, you need to go get one of the get a demo account, Alice. Alice is like the app queen with the forefront of technology out there in Colorado.
Oh, awesome.
Send us an email. And thank you for having us.
Yeah,
Dustin.
thank you so much.
This was a great opportunity.
Yeah.
And thanks to
No
the
problem.
audience for joining.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you guys were able to get on here. So for those of you that are on, this is, we typically have 2 sessions today, but today we just had 1 Avail, so everybody can have a little bit more time. This is recorded, so go to Disability Cocoon. We're gonna have all of these tech huddles and all of the sessions from all of the conferences that we've ever done and ever will do available on disabilitycocoon.com here in the very, very near future, like the next week. So if you missed this or want somebody else to see it within your organization, this will be available. Just go check out disabilitycocoon.com. Thank you all for joining. Holly, Julie, thanks again. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye,
All right.
everyone.
Everybody have a good day, everyone, and we'll see you not next week, week after.